Hello friends, today we are going to discuss a new chapter in history named as the Indian National Movement, the First War of Independence 1857. Okay, let's get into chapter. The process of the British conquest of India, which began from mid 18th century and the subsequent consolidation of British rule, was resented by the Indians belonging to all segments of Indian society: kings, queens, peasants, landlords, tribals, and soldiers. Hardly a year passed till 1857 when some part of the country or the other did not rise in revolt against the policies and actions of the British that harmed their interests or went against their sentiments of India. However, these rebellions were local, scattered, and isolated. They did not pose a serious threat to the British. Nonetheless, these revolts established a local tradition of struggle against the foreign rule. This resentment to the British rule culminated in the First War of Independence in 1857, in which millions of peasants, artisans, and soldiers participated. It shook the government to its very foundation. Here, this paragraph is telling that uh, it was a first mass uprising and it paved the way for the modern national movement. Do you get it, children? My friends, it is a first mass uprising and it paved the way, means it showed the way for the modern national movement. What is the modern national movement? This is only the First War of Independence 1857. Causes of the First War of Independence. The first 100 years of the British rule in India, that is from 1757 to 1857, were marked by British conquests and rapid expansion of their dominion in India. The first 100 years of the British rule in India, that is from 1757 to 1857, means the British ruled 100 years. The first 100 years from 1757 to 1857 were marked by the British conquest and the rapid expansion of the dominion in India. The British conquest, their conquest they expanded their dominion in India rapidly. The combined effect of the British expansionist policies, economic exploitation, and administrative changes adversely affected all segments of Indian society. The British expansionist policies, economic exploitation, administrative changes affected the segments of India, means all the states of India, and it was against us. Those changes are not comfortable for our culture. The ruling classes were dispossessed of their power, the peasantry was deprived of its land rights, and the artisans lost their livelihood. The ruling classes means the ruling kings lost their power, the peasantry was deprived of its land rights, and artisans lost their livelihood. Artisans lost their livelihood. The middle and upper classes of Indian society, particularly in northern India, were annoyed because of their exclusion from the well-paid higher post in the administration. Especially in northern India, they are annoyed because of their exclusion from the well-paid higher post in the administration. Men who followed cultural and religious activities like priests and scholars found themselves without income as they lost their patrons. The Indian rulers, princes, and zamindars who had themselves lost their authority. People who followed cultural or religious activities, means doing pujas and these all things. We will do pujas, no? These religious activities, namaz, all those like priests and scholars found themselves without income as and they lost their patrons. The Indian rulers, princes, and jamindars lost their authority, lost their work. The company's Indian soldiers were discontent with their low salary, hard life, and the ill treatment meted out to them by the British officers. Indian soldiers were discontent. The company's Indian soldiers were discontent with their low salary. Our Indian soldiers who worked in the British government, they were annoyed because of their low salary and hard life with ill treatment, which was given by the British officers. Thus, by 1857, conditions were ripe for a mass uprising, and the accumulated grievances of the people burst forth in the form of the First War of Independence. In the First War of Independence, in the form of the First War of Independence, our soldiers, people rise on Britishers. They burst out with these activities: ill treatment, low salary, hard life, administrative changes, expansionist policies, economic exploitation. Jamindars, princes lost their authority. These all busted our people of India. So it is called as the first mass uprising, and it paved the way for the modern national movement. Let's see the political causes. Policy of expansion. The British policy of territorial expansion and gradual annexation of the native Indian states was one of the major grievances of the Indian rulers. Here, the British policy of territorial expansion and the gradual annexation of the native Indian states was one of the major grievances of the rulers. British policy means the British rule of territorial expansion of territories, and gradual annexation of the native Indian states. Annexation of the Indian states was one of the major grievance of the Indian rulers. Ever since the Battle of Plassey, the East India Company's territorial power increased rapidly. After the Battle of Plassey, East India Company, which means the British government power increased rapidly, means very fastly. The British tried to expand their political power by 4 ways: by outright wars, by subsidiary alliance, by adopting the doctrine of lapse, on the pretext Alexander misrule. Okay, let's discuss about the first way, which is known as by outright wars. To expand their territorial power in India and to safeguard their economic and political interests, the British waged many wars against the Indian rulers of different states. The Britishers, to expand their territorial power, means to expand their power and economic and political interests, to expand their interests and to safeguard, the British waged many wars against Indian states. They waged many wars against Indian states for expanding, for to expand their territorial power and to safeguard their economic and political interests. The Battle of Buxar, which is held on 1764, established the British as masters of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. After the Battle of Buxar, Britishers were stood as the masters of Bengal, Bihar, and Odisha. As a result of this success, in Anglo-Mysore Wars 1767 to 1799, the East India Company annexed most of the territories of the Mysore state. As a result, in Anglo-Mysore Wars, the East India Company, which means the British government, annexed the most of the territories, means the most of the lands and territories of Mysore state. After the Third Anglo-Maratha War, the Peshwa's entire dominions and all Maratha territory north and south of the Narmada River were acquired by the British. Next, the Punjab was annexed in 1849 after the Sikhs were defeated in the Second Anglo-Sikh War. The Punjab was annexed in 1849. The Punjab was annexed in 1849 after the Sikhs were defeated in the Second Anglo-Sikh War. After the Sikhs were defeated in the Second Anglo-Sikh War, the Punjab was annexed by the Britishers. Do you get it? From 1823 to 1856, the British further extended their empire by conquering Sindh, territories of Assam, Arakan, and Tenasserim and Pegu in Myanmar. From 1823 to 1856, in this time period, the British extended their empire. They extended their empire by conquering Sindh territories. Territories of Assam, Arakan, Tenasserim, and Pegu in Myanmar. Okay. The second way is by subsidiary alliance. Some Indian states were brought under the British control without actually annexing them. Some Indian states were brought under the British control without actually annexing them. Without annexing them, some Indian states were brought under the British control. Which means that without annexing Britishers, some Indian states were get into the British control. This was done by following the subsidiary alliance introduced by Lord Wellesley. It was done by following the subsidiary alliance, which is introduced by Lord Wellesley. Here, left side of the Lord Dalhousie, Lord Wellesley photo is there. You can see. Okay, let's know the meaning of subsidiary alliance. Subsidiary alliance was an agreement between the British East India Company and the Indian princely states, by virtue of which these states lost their sovereignty, which means the power of a ruler to rule independently without by any outside interference. What is meant by subsidiary alliance means it was an agreement. Remember, children, remember, my friends, it was an agreement between the British government and our Indian states, by virtue of these states lost their sovereignty. By virtue of these states lost their sovereignty, which means the power of a ruler, to rule a kingdom without a power of a ruler to rule independently by own, without any interference of outside people. It is called as sovereignty. Lost the sovereignty. Under this system, the inner rulers who agreed to subsidiary alliance. What is the system? Let's see. Accepted the British as the supreme power. They accepted the British as a supreme power. Second one, surrendered their foreign relations to the East India Company and agreed that they will not enter into any alliance with any other power and will not wage wars. Accepted, you can note any 4 points. You take 1, second, third, no need of third one, fourth one and fifth one, 4 points. 4 marks, 4 points. First one, accepted the British as the supreme power. They accepted the British as the supreme power. Surrendered their foreign relations to the East India Company. They are surrendered and agreed that they will not enter into any alliance with any other power and will not wage wars. Fourth one, agreed to maintain British troops at their own cost. They are agreed to maintain British troops at their own cost. They has to pay salary for the Britishers. Virtually lost their independence. They lost their independence. This is subterraneans. Let's see the third way, by using the doctrine of lapse. Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General of India, annexed many Indian states to the company using the doctrine of lapse. What does it means? Lord Dalhousie, he was a Governor General of India. He annexed many Indian states to the company using the doctrine of lapse. He annexed many Indian states to the East India Company, which means the British government, using the doctrine of lapse. What is the doctrine of lapse? According to his doctrine, if an Indian ruler died without a male heir, means without a son, his kingdom would lapse. That is, it will come under the company's territory in India. Do you get this? According to him, if any ruler doesn't have a son, after his death, his kingdom will lapse, which means his kingdom will go under the control of Britishers. Very simple doctrine. Let's see one example. When the ruler of Jhansi died in 1853, leaving no natural heir, the widow Rani was pensioned and their adopted son, Anand Rao, was not recognized as a lawful successor to the throne. See here, ruler of Jhansi died in 1853 without a natural heir. She has a adopted son. They did not recognized as a lawful successor of the throne. So that kingdom is lapsed. Next, let's see the fourth way of the outright war on the pretext of the alleged misrule. In 1856, Lord Dalhousie annexed Awadh to the company's dominions on the pretext of alleged misrule. Lord Dalhousie annexed Awadh. He annexed Awadh to the company dominions on the pretext of alleged misrule. On following alleged misrule, he declared that Awadh was being misgoverned and British rule was needed to ensure power administration. Lord Dalhousie declared that Awadh was being misgoverned and British rule was needed to ensure proper administration. He declared that Awadh is misgoverned and they were needed the British government to rule. Lord Dalhousie justified the annexation of the Awadh on the pretext of the good of the governed. On the contrary, the people of Awadh had to face more hardships. They had to pay higher land revenue and additional taxes on food. I will explain one second. Lord Dalhousie justified the annexation of Awadh on the pretext of the good of the governed. On the contrary, the people of Awadh had to face more hardships. What are those hardships means? Let's see. They had to pay higher land revenue and additional taxes on food, houses and ferries. They had to pay higher money for land and additional taxes on food. Taxes on food. Do you get this? Houses and ferries. They had to pay for the houses also. The dissolution of Awadh's army and administration threw thousands of nobles, officials and soldiers out of jobs. The dissolution of the Nawab of Awadh's army and administration threw thousands of nobles, officials and soldiers out of jobs. After the dissolution of Awadh's army, administration threw the nobles, officials and soldiers out of jobs. The British confiscated the estates of talukdars or jamindars. They confiscated the estates of talukdars and zamindars. The company sepoys, of whom 75,000 were from Awadh, were the worst affected. Next, second political cause, disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Let's see what is the disrespect shown to Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah Jafar, the Mughal ruler, he was a Mughal ruler, was under the protection of the company and received a pension from the British. Bahadur Shah, the Mughal ruler, was under the protection of East India Company and the pension received from the British. The name of the Mughal king was removed from the coins minted by the company. Here, not minted, it is printed. The name of the Mughal king was removed from the coin. Means on the coin the name was there, they removed that name. In 1849, Lord Dalhousie announced that the success of Bahadur Shah Jafar would not be permitted to use the Red Fort as their palace. They were required to shift to a place near the Qutb Minar. In 1856, Lord Canning announced that after the death of the Bahadur Shah, his successors will not be allowed to use the imperial titles with their names and will be known as mere princes. This decision of the British hurt the feelings of Mughals. In 1856, Lord Canning announced that after the death of Bahadur Shah, his successors will not be allowed to use the imperial titles with their names and will be known as mere princes. It is known as after the death of Bahadur Shah, his successors will not be allowed to use the imperial titles with their names and they are called as mere princes. Do you get this? Next, third political cause, the treatment given to Nana Sahib. Nana Sahib was the adopted son of Baji Rao II, the last Peshwa. Nana Sahib was the adopted son of the Baji Rao II. He was the adopted son of the Baji Rao II, the last Peshwa. He was the last Peshwa. The British refused to grant Nana Sahib the pension they were paying to Baji Rao II. They are not allowed to pay pension for Nana Sahib, which was paying for Baji Rao II. Nana Sahib was forced to live at Kanpur, far away from his family seat at Pune. And he was forced to live at Kanpur, far away from his family seat at Pune. Pune. This was widely resented in Maratha region. It was widely resented in Maratha region. Nana Sahib had inherited wealth from the former Peshwa, which he utilized in sending emissaries to different parts of the country for generating awareness among the Indian about the British policies. The Nana Sahib also traveled between Delhi and Lucknow. He also traveled between Delhi and Lucknow to gather support for the movement. Absentee sovereignty of the British. Absentee sovereignty of the British means that India was being ruled by the British government from England at a distance of thousands of miles. Absentee sovereignty of the British means India was being ruled, means India was ruled by the British government from England. From England, India was ruling by the British government at a distance of 1,000 miles. There is a distance of 1,000 miles between England and India. Okay, friends, so let's discuss social causes in next part 2 because it is 25 minutes and you will feel very bored. That's why. Thank you, friends. Bye.